Okay, good afternoon. Hi, folks. Appreciate everyone joining us. I am going to share my screen. I've got a little bit of information. I'll get that up before we don't have a very large group, so I think maybe we could do a quick introduction for everyone on so we know kind of who's participating. Okay, bear with me, because once I share my screen, then I can't see any of you. So let me, okay. Try and get everybody up so I can see you again. Where's my cursor? Okay, so my challenge when I'm sharing my screen is I can't see the chat. And can everybody else put themselves on mute? Because I'm getting feedback. Okay. Nope. Brandon, I think it might be your iPhone. Okay, I think we're good there. Okay, hi everybody. Shannon Jacks, repurposing office for Kansas City Public Schools. I'm glad everyone's here. Before we get started, I also want to allow Mr. Graham, Irving Graham from South Round Top Neighborhood Association to say a few words too. And then maybe we can do either quick introductions, either in the chat, say who you are, or if you want to speak up and say hello to everyone. But Mr. Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Irving Graham. I am the president of our neighborhood association. Our boundaries are between Indiana, Jackson Avenue, north to south from 27th Street to in that we have the ground at the Greenwood site, which we are happy things are working out with the Fulson Housing Group and the school district. Is there anything in particular you want me to speak on initially?
Nope, that works.
Thank you very much. I'll put myself on mute now.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. I know a couple people have introduced themselves in the chat, so check that out. I'm going to let Matt's team with Missouri Housing Partners, they'll introduce themselves next, but for others that are part of the neighborhood or not part of the development team, if you'd like to say hello and introduce yourself or put it in the chat.
Hello, this is Mr. Quarles. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mr. Quarles. I'm over here on Mercenton, 2811 Mercenton, and been wanting to come to one of these meetings or find out more about this future of the property of that area.
Great. Well, thanks for coming today.
Okay.
Anybody else want to introduce themselves? And again, you can do that in the chat as well.
Hi, my name is Janae Manley. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a leader with KC Tenants. I'm mainly here to gather information, get our base up to date on what is going on, and I'm very interested to learn more. Thank you for having me.
Anyone else? If not, then I'm going to ask folks to share who you are in the chat. And then I'm going to go through just a few slides. Okay, just to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Is everyone seeing where it says background meeting purpose?
No.
I should say if you're on a computer, if you're on a phone, you will not see it. So I will try to go over those things effectively for folks that are joining us by phone. I will also make these slides available. I can either email them out to folks or post them or post them to our website. But for folks that are joining, actually, Jesse, I'm going to ask you because I know you're sitting across the hall from me. Can you see where it says background meeting purpose? Okay. All right. So first couple bullets are really trying to share kind of where we are in this process. So we last met, at least for folks who were able to join us for one of the proposal presentations, that was back in September. In advance of the deadline for low-income housing tax credits. And so based off of the positive feedback that we received, the district and Missouri Housing Partners, we entered into an option to purchase on October 6th. So essentially that was subject to an award of the tax credits. MHTC, the Missouri Housing Development Commission, I think that's what that acronym stands for. They awarded the tax credits to the project in December. Missouri Housing Partners had until the end of January to exercise that option to purchase. And so that's when we entered into the sales contract. We're here today because prior to the sale, the school district and Missouri Housing Partners need to finalize 2 agreements, and we want your feedback to inform what goes into those agreements. And so unless there's any huge questions right now with kind of just what our purpose is today, under that timeline, I'm going to turn things over to Matt's team, and they have a separate slide deck. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen while Nakai uploads their slides.
We'll do that in just a moment. I mean, I'll start talking, and then when we get to the slides, I'll have Nakai start sharing screens, and then folks can see the documents that we've got. Shall I go ahead?
Go for it, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks. My name is Matt Fulson. I'm the president of Folsom Housing Group. Missouri Housing Partners is our development entity. A development company within the group of companies, and so Missouri Housing Partners is the developer for the Greenwood senior apartments. Shannon kind of laid out to you how we came about the agreement with the district to try to buy the site to do a 49 unit mixed income senior property on the site. Some of you may or may not have been at the neighborhood meeting that we had on the site to talk through kind of what our plans were, and we'll go through those here in just a moment. But I just did want to share with you an update of where things stand, where we are, and kind of timeline for what we're doing to get this to closing, under construction, and then hopefully finished and occupied. So as Shannon mentioned, we were awarded the credits in December. We are moving toward we engaged our architect and are streamlining plans now. We had a basic design that we shared with the community. That's been the next version of that has been has been kind of vetted in our, we have a weekly design meeting that we're doing with the architect. And we'll show you some of the changes that have been proposed. And then, so we've engaged the architect engineers next, and we're moving toward trying to get construction documents within the next, I don't know, 2.5 months, probably 2 months, to get submitted to the city of Kansas City for permit. We have a lot split and an MPD, master plan development that we'll have to do. So there's going to be some city processes that probably take us to closing. If I'm being optimistic, I'll say late summer, maybe September. And so that we've got an 18-month schedule. We'll probably beat that, but we'll start out with an 18-month construction schedule. And if we're July, August closing, then we ought to be finishing up and leasing up in the first quarter of 24. What else am I missing? So let's Nakai, if you would, can you we'll kind of show you the drawings work in progress. And can you, everybody see the plan, the site plan on the screen? Okay. It's a little small, and I don't think I want to go that far. Thank you. It's a little small, so I'll tell you that the along the right side is 27th Street. Cleveland is along the bottom. The L-shaped building is positioned about like we had originally proposed in our plans to the city, or in our plans to the neighborhood rather. And then parking is, as you can see there, off of Monroe. There will be there'll be an aluminum fence around the entire site, and then a gate at the Monroe entrance. Our plan right now is to maintain either the retaining wall that's there along Cleveland, or rebuilding the retaining wall that's along Cleveland. But we anticipate having that elevation change and come up to where the building slab is going to be on that level. Also in the site plan, you see a mock-up of an amphitheater that we talked about doing down on the lower section of the site as you go down Cleveland. And then the hashed part above that is you can't really read the text that's in there, but that is at least initially, it's just to delineate the land that we're donating to the South Round Top Neighborhood Association. The plan, I believe, in talking to Mr. Graham, is that's to be the site of a community center or building of some sort that we intend to help him out with the planning efforts for. So that's kind of the general site layout. There's going to be some modifications to that because of the amount of drop that we have from about where the parking lot entrance is down to the other locations. As most of you are aware, that's there's probably an 8-foot drop or so between 6 and 8 feet as you go across that site. So again, there will probably be retaining walls, but that's what the engineers are there to figure out. Can you slide on down to the next one? This one's a little harder to see, but I will tell you, if you could come in on it just a little bit, Nakai. The unit layouts they're on the bottom sheet here, but the unit layouts, we've got a mix of 1s and 2s. This is as you can see, that this is the entrance. The inside is where the main entrance will be. coming into a lobby and then a community room. The property will have on-site management and maintenance. We'll have security services, etc. But we will have somebody there. We will have staff there 40 hours a week, no question. So if you come down to each floor, come down one more slide. Each floor has an amount of community space on it. Activity rooms, reading rooms, puzzle rooms, that kind of thing. Keep going. And that right there in the corner, that area there is that we've got that as a cards and crafts room. That the wall that's in there that comes into the courtyard is glass for 3 stories. So I think it's going to have we'll see an elevation of that. We're just not to the point where they're in color and everybody can kind of make it out. So I'm trying to describe it. Move on down to okay, this top one that you see here is the 27th Street side. We've made some modifications to it. It was pretty square before. It was based on a building that we had done previously here in Kansas City. One of the things that we are trying to do more of on this 27th Street elevation is to give it some of the aesthetic character of the old school entrance. Even though this is not a main entrance to the building, it is a main facade, and we wanted to, so that the brick that you see, the majority of this side is brick. We're going to try to keep it, in that red that was that the school was, and then detail it with the stone accents like it was before. Come on down. All right. This is the 20. Yes, this is the view looking north. So it's the south elevation of the building. In the center of that, you can see that the cover over the front door entrance is right there. And then going up from that is the 3-story glass that goes into our community rooms and lobby on each of the floors. So we've got a mixture on the exteriors of block, brick, and hardy siding or cement siding. So all maintenance free and should last us a long while. Come on down. These are the other 2 elevations. This is the Cleveland Street side. There is a porch that we've designed into this. It's a covered porch that will be off of that side, that will be available for community meetings, our resident meetings, and we're toying with the idea. We've got an option to be able to enclose that room so that it is usable three seasons out of the year. So that's kind of on the drawing board. But this is the other inside view of the courtyard where the parking is, and that's the front door that you see there. Again, that's all block, concrete block on so that we've got masonry low on this, and then the remainder of it will be broken up in different either different colors and different textures of hardy siding. Okay, go ahead and slide down. If you could zoom in on the lower one, thank you. That one. This is a typical 1-bedroom plan. We've got 17 1-bedrooms, and the balance of them are 2s. All of the units will have in-unit washer and dryer, along with their own, individually system, HVAC system. And we will be providing the actual washer and dryer. So it's not hookups, it'll be actually the appliances themselves. Come down to the 2-bedroom, Nakai. Keep going, there we go. So similar, the main bedroom in this unit has a sizable walk-in closet. The galley kitchen's got your HVAC and laundry at the other end of it. Two bedrooms. And these units are about just under 1,000 feet. The 1-bedroom, I think, is about 700, just under 700. So that's all I have for the updated drawings. We will continue to continue to revise these as we go forward. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to update on. I'm just hopeful that we can stay on that schedule. We as Shannon said, we executed the contract and should be prepared to close within the next, is it 60 days, Shannon? Okay.
Very aggressive schedule, which I'm not quite sure why we went that aggressive.
Yeah, well, it's pretty tight. It's pretty tight, but we'll make it happen. We're committed to making this happen. We could not be happier with MHDC's decision to fund this project this year. There were about 20 or so projects that were proposed in Kansas City, and we were lucky enough to be one of the 2 that were in Kansas City proper. So it's going to be a great project, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I can answer.
Matt, before I open it up to questions, yes. Can you also highlight for folks, we've called it a mixed income project. I mean, we talked about the low income housing tax credits. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about like what the income levels are and rent rates are that is targeted to? And then also, is it the home funds? There's another source that allows for the AMI levels lower.
Yes, than it's a mixed income property. So we will have units that are at 30%, 50% of area median income. So 30%, 50%, and the balance they'll be at 60, but for the market rate units, we'll actually have five market rate units that are completely unrestricted. So there'll be a wide range of rental of incomes within the building. But of note is that there's rental assistance that will be available for all of the affordable units. So it will be the income limits will apply, but the individual rent will depend on the individual situation.
Thank you. And one other thing I'll note, just, Matt kind of gave the overall time frame for when they're trying to get their construction documents done so that they could go to the city. One of the requirements, so we have this meeting today, we have another one on the 25th to really inform the benefit agreement and the proper use restriction agreement. As Matt and his team go through working out those additional details on and solidifying the site plan and elevations and construction documents, there is a requirement in our agreement. It's kind of a standard thing that we have for all of our sales to hold 2 additional meetings prior to going to the city for their approvals, so that you have additional opportunities to get updates on the project and weigh in. We don't normally host those, but we normally inform, Matt's team will inform us of them, and then we will help get that information out to you as well. So just know that there will be times to continue to engage with Matt's team as this project, gets kind of further solidified with details. Okay, questions that people have over what Matt went over. We're at 12:30. I want to make sure that we have at least a good 20 minutes to go through the property use restriction agreement and benefit agreement. So I will cut us off if we go too many questions. We'll just stick those in the chat, try and get back to you. But any initial questions about what you saw, either in site plan or floor plans, et cetera?
This is Mr. Quarles again. I'm hearing something about, I can hear what he said, but actually seeing it is a whole lot different. And I haven't gotten any information other than this card saying that there was a meeting today on the Zoom. It's kind of hard to visualize what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I will get, I'm going to take down all the phone numbers for people who did not have a chance to participate by Zoom video, and make sure that we find a way of getting you copies of those slides so that you can visualize it. This platform works great, or better, I should say, for folks that can participate by video, but I'll make sure that those of you that called in, that we get that information to you as well.
Okay. I heard about the one other meeting that they had on site. This is Mr. Quarles again, and we're on Mercenton, okay? And I've talked to a few other neighbors around here, and they're in the dark just like me. And I know some people around here and some people that live close to this area, how can I say this? They would love to come to the meeting, or they would love to have an input, but they haven't had the opportunity due to, lack of communication. So, I mean, I know we're at this point here right now, today, but when we used to have the meetings at the library, I would participate, myself and Miss Reddsdale. I know she's passed on now, because I was going to partner with her to make changes to the school that was there. We had everything in place, and then all of a sudden, I guess the school board said they didn't want to do things that way after getting the school declared historic. But and now the way, how can I say, we're at this point here and now today, there are many other concerns that I have not yet had a chance to voice. I'm still a hardworking man, and my family is still here, and the next generations have arrived. So they would greatly benefit from our future talks.
So we have additional meetings scheduled, and like I said, I'll make sure that you get copies of the information, and we can figure out for folks that the Zoom meetings don't work very well. With COVID right now, it is hard with doing in-person meetings, but we'll see what we can do. I'll make sure that we reach out to you directly. So one, you've got all the information, and two, that you have an opportunity to share your feedback.
I don't want to be on the news because we didn't entertain these other people, that their lives would be put in peril, where they would have to move because this one entity came into the neighborhood. Is there a way we can address those issues?
So we shouldn't be displacing anyone. We're building on the old Greenwood site. And definitely we want to make sure that neighbors have an opportunity to participate. We've been sending out communication in a variety of ways, but definitely always open to your input on what we can do better. I'm gonna ask that, just because of our limited time, that we are able to get some feedback and questions from other folks. I want to start with the questions that are coming in the chat, Matt. We've got one about, I'm going to do Jake's first because it's about the specifics that you went through on the elevations.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're seeing that.
I am.
Okay, could you respond to that one?
Sure,
Or
sure.
can you
The-
actually
the-
summarize it? Can you summarize it for those
Sure.
that don't
He
see the
was-
chat too?
He was, his first comment was that the elevation drawings would be helpful for people to understand what the site prep and how that's going to change from where we are to where we're going. And I understand that the site, the site plan that we have is flat, and I understand further that it's not. But that engineering is being done, and as soon as I have an elevation that I can share with a building elevation that I can share that takes into consideration the topography, we will do that. But I definitely want to get that. I definitely want to get that out there. Second part of your question on residents, will there be outside space available? The answer is that is yes. We've talked about this amphitheater. We may come back to Mr. Graham and talk about more of a gathering space that's a covered, a covered gathering space, pavilion of some kind. But we'll revisit that. But yes, there will be some outside gathering space. And finally, yes, a landscape plan would be submitted as part of our package to the city.
Thanks, Matt. The next comment relates to permanent affordability. Can you kind of outline the affordability
Yes.
that's required
Yes.
by MHTC and then what happens
no
after
problem,
that?
No problem. While the tax credit program is a 15-year compliance, has a 15-year compliance program or a 15-year compliance period, we voluntarily move that number to 30. So at a minimum, the property will have to be in the program for 30 years. We're an affordable housing development company. That's what we do. There's no that's what we do. The assistance that you were Patricia, you had a question about the assistance and whether it was temporary. It is not. It is a permanent contract that we have that will continue to serve the property as long as it's in operation.
And then it looks like there's a question about parking. How many parking stalls and how does that relate to the number of bedrooms?
I believe zoning is 1-to-1, and I think we're slightly over that, but I would have to check that. I don't know the number that's on our current site plan, but we will have to meet whatever the current zoning requirement is. We don't intend to seek a variance for parking.
And then Dewan's comment relates to, it might be helpful for neighbors who didn't previously participate to discuss the land donation, what that includes. And that's going to be the next part of what we do today. So we'll get to that. Thank you for setting me up for that next stage. Other questions about site plan, schedule, floor plans?
My question as far as the traffic has never been answered.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
With so many more people coming into the area in one spot, how is the traffic going to be negotiated? Especially with no traffic signals or traffic warnings. Okay, you bring in 49 units, which means it's at least 49 people, if not 100. And you have those just living there plus your workers. So how do the current neighborhood and the rest of the city negotiate traffic?
Well, I mean, in terms of, I guess, all I can say is that when we go to the city for our planning, P&Z review and all of that, one of the things that they'll take into consideration is the amount of traffic. And if there is an issue there, from their perspective, if there's an issue there, then they may want us to do something different. They may want us to have a different egress from the property. But we certainly don't intend to overrun anything. Our experience with senior properties of this type is that we are usually in practicality, in reality, what happens is we have about a half, 0.5 to 0.6 cars per unit. We don't have a huge number of we don't have overflow parking in these situations, but I understand the concern and know that we will try to address it. In any way that we can. We're not there to cause a problem. So.
Hey, Matt, can you hear me?
Yes.
I noticed that there's only one entrance into the parking lot.
Say that again.
There was only one entrance to the parking lot.
That's the way that we've got it planned right now. Yes.
Okay. And in the event that there's something that prevents you from using that one access point, how do you relieve that?
I mean, we haven't had that issue before. We haven't had that comment before, but I mean, if as I said, if it becomes some type of a zoning issue, or requirement of the city for us to have multiple, it changes things, but we'll have to change them. I can't imagine a circumstance where we wouldn't be able to use our egress point. But
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
You've got gas and water running exactly where your approach will be. Last year at another site, the water main busted.
Okay.
And they had to dig it up, and that eliminated them being able to access the property in a similar situation just like this one.
And off the top of my head, I would say that we would create a temporary exit while that work was going on and come back to it after the fact. But I mean, we can't prepare for every eventuality, but we can definitely try to be nimble when we have issues like that. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Matt if you can respond to one more item in the chat before we talk about the property use restriction agreement and the benefit agreement, and that relates to the walkway under 27th in Cleveland. Do you plan on doing anything, or is this something that you're approaching the city about?
We've had a discussion with a couple of people at the city about those. We have had a couple of conversations with people at the city about what money might be available for us to do something with that tunnel. It's not part of our project today. That doesn't mean it won't be, but there's no funding in place to do anything with it. The further issue that I am concerned about with it is what are we bringing it back to do? I mean, if there is no, I mean, there isn't anybody going across those intersections right now, and I'm not sure where they're going if they do, and so I'm unsure as to what, and that's a discussion we'll have to have with the city as well, is if we're going to ask them for however much money it is to bring these entrances plus the, plus the tunnel back up to some standard. What's the purpose of that? Where are we trying to move people to and from? The other issue is, I know when after I found out about this and did some research on it, that the city put a water main directly through that tunnel that I don't know, that I think takes up the walkway. I don't know, not takes it up completely, but runs right through the middle of it. So I don't know that it's workable, even if we have a plan, even if there is a plan for, for what it is. So that's as much as I know about the walkway.
So thanks, Matt. There are a couple more questions in the chat, and Matt, the ones that you can respond to, if maybe you or a member of your team can do that in the chat. Because of time, I want to make sure that we get to the other pieces of our discussion today. But we will get back to folks on anything that was in the chat to make sure that we respond and get it out to everybody. I will say I'm taking notes of things that you guys are talking about, because some of the things are items that we have in the past incorporated into a property use restriction agreement. So let me share my screen again, if I can find my cursor. Hello, cursor. Okay. All right, we should be back. Okay, so property use restriction agreement. It is a document that we have used for almost every single one of our sites. I think maybe we didn't do it for the first few. It's something that we incorporated, not on day one, but probably on like sale 4 or 5. So it gets recorded with the deed, and it outlines what the property can be used for. The intent really is to ensure that the buyer develops the site in accordance with what they tell you as the community and what they tell the school district when we agree to get it under contract. And we've done this partially because sales happen prior to all of the financing being secured. They happen prior to all the discussions in City Hall where there could be changes. And we have had multiple instances where buyers have made a really good faith effort on a particular project that they talked to the community about, but then they've needed to make a change. Either they can't finance what they originally proposed, or sometimes they get feedback from the neighborhood that they want to make a change. And so the property use restriction agreement essentially sets that restriction on that site. And if the buyer wants to make a change after it's under contract, they come back to the school district to get that property use description or restriction agreement amended. We hold a public meeting or public meetings, depending on whether or not there's concerns about it, prior to either granting the request for a change or denying the request. But really, we do this to ensure that they follow through on what they say they're going to do. So for this particular site right now, some things that are really clear to me that I would advocate for being in it is that it's a mixed income project. It's senior because that's what they said it would be, and it's new construction. For example, if it's historic, we state that. Maybe the new construction isn't. It's clear there's not a building on the site, but the other piece is community access. So we've talked about a couple things already. We talked about land, but also use of the community room. Those are things that I think are very clear we would need to outline in this. Elements that we have included for other sites based off of things that we hear from the neighborhood as being important ingress, egress, parking, landscape. So all these things that you guys have all just mentioned, these are common questions that we've had. And so we try to draft it to make sure that there's special consideration for those, and not just meeting what the city requires, but also trying to accommodate the feedback that we get from neighbors. And so I think now, before we kind of talk about the benefit agreement, I'd like to get a sense, is there feedback on things that you think are really important to go in this? And I'm going to ask for those of you that can use the chat, please do so, because we have limited time. We don't have to resolve everything today, but I need to have a sense of what you think are the most critical pieces. For those that are you on the phone, certainly please speak up and share your thoughts. And then once we get your feedback on this, then I want to go to the benefit agreement. One other thing before I take feedback that I should share, the property use restriction agreement does get released once there is a certificate of occupancy that demonstrates they've built the project out in accordance with what they said they would do. I should say at least most of it. There's a few things, like if there's a community use or deeding the land over, something like that, that is something that would remain, and we would say it would last for the term of the agreement. We've normally had those agreements be for a 20-year term, except for the piece that gets released. So thoughts on the items that I outlined and or additional things? To give people a little bit of time. Jake, your hand is up.
Yes, Shannon, I wonder if it would help the neighborhood see some examples of property, like what kinds of items make the most sense. I mean, obviously, if they're going to work with Mr. Fulson to address the development of this sort of secondary parcel on the lower half on the west side, that's a pretty big ask, right? And so, I think we need to kind of have some way of balancing, like, okay, what's the order of operations in terms of priorities? Listening to Mr. Warren, I understand his concern around the emergency access, but I think overall, having one entrance where it already is probably what the neighborhood's used to. Obviously, there'll be more traffic on the Monroe side. So, that's going to be kind of impact the neighbors across the street on Monroe. But Cleveland is already really busy with traffic. So I actually think it really shouldn't have an entrance on Cleveland. And if there was an emergency exit only kind of situation, the question is, what's the impact on the retaining walls? The retaining walls, I don't know how much they were damaged during the demolition. Last time I saw them, they look pretty good. I'm sure there's parts of it that have had water damage. I mean, it's a 100-year-old site. So, I trust the developer and his team to try to figure out how they can maintain that historic character. I know you've done that on other sites, and it gives it a nice reminder of the history of the site for the neighborhood. And it's also just nice because those are walls you're never going to get again as far as the materiality and the construction. The issue on the tunnel was not like I'm thinking you need to reopen it. The issue was, this is our opportunity to resolve that as an issue. Whether it's Mr. Fulson's issue is a question, because honestly, it's in the right of way and it's really not on the private property side. So the question is, will the school district work with the city and the neighborhoods to address the tunnel? If they've already compromised it with water and all these other things, then, the neighborhood may or may not want to deal with it all. And let's just cap it off permanently and not have these weird, cages over the top of them that just, they look crappy, right? Because Mr. Fulson's going to want to have a nice arrival point, people arriving at the building, and neighbors, folks arriving in the neighborhood are going to want signage saying, hey, this is Washington Wheatley, this is South Round Top, this is East 23rd Street Pack. They don't want to see these cages over these holes in the ground. So that was my point on the tunnels. I don't think it's Matt Folsom's issue, but I do think now's the time to address it as a team and make sure the city doesn't leave it out there unresolved as the mess it currently is. You know, again, the Center for Neighborhoods, myself, I'm willing to help Mr. Graham from South Round Top and Mr. Fulson and the school district figure out what that, you know, public use piece is. I love the amphitheater edition. I think, you know, there's no really outdoor spaces for people to enjoy music outside or poetry or theater or, you know, events for youth. So I really like the amphitheater idea. And, you know, to me, if we can make that work, that's great, but I'll defer to the neighborhood in terms of what they think the priorities are, you know, but I do think it's important to identify the order of like what matters the most to the neighborhood, you know? So that's my 2 cents or 50 cents or whatever. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. I agree. I think now is the time to work with the city to get the tunnel addressed. Other thoughts on priorities? And again, I know some of you can't see these slides, so I'll make sure that that gets out to you. And I think I'm happy to join one of or more of the South Round Top regular meetings on Fridays in advance of our meeting on the 25th. So that if there's any questions or things that we need to go through and talk about priorities in advance of that meeting on the 25th. For the sake of time, I'm going to get to the benefit agreement as well so that we can talk a little bit about that. Okay. So the benefit agreement is also agreement that's recorded with a deed. It is not something that we have done from every site. It's something that we did for the first time with Robeson. But the current board has asked us to start doing them. So we've been working on it on one for LAD, which is set to close a little bit sooner than this project. But really the purpose of it is to outline benefits. You know, these sites were once really strong community assets as schools. How do we kind of ensure that they continue to be? The way that we're drafting these is that the district, the buyer, and the neighborhood association or associations are parties to the agreement. And we have had them run from the date of sale through the end of any tax abatement period. And then things that we have heard to date that I think at least is the basic things to outline in the benefit agreement is the land that's deeded to the neighborhood association. And then I know that Matt has been interested based off some feedback that he's received in establishing a rehab fund that could be administered by the neighborhood association to help homeowners surrounding the site do some minor rehab of their homes. So those are things that could be outlined in that. That does not mean like all the details get done at that time, but the commitments get kind of memorialized in that document. At least that's how we have worked them before. And the idea is that you continue to work buyer and the neighborhood on those things. So I'm going to stop sharing again, maybe. My mouse does not, excuse me. Questions, feedback, priorities. I know we've thrown a lot at you all.
Hey, Shannon.
Yes, Matt.
There's a question in the chat about whether these recordings are available publicly. I just wanted you to be able to address that.
Yes. So the other meetings that we had, one was part of the 3rd district meeting. I don't know if they recorded that. The other one we had was on site, so there wasn't a recording. For this one, yes, we can make this available. And I can, if folks are interested in receiving it, I can see getting that to you, and or we can look at putting that on our website. Any objection to the 2 items that we talked about for the benefit agreement? I mean, I can actually could see maybe we memorialize the commitment for the developer, the school district, and the neighborhood association to work sorry, collectively in trying to address the tunnel issue. Not that we're responsible for the funding, but at least trying to approach the city. Mr. Graham, I know you have to leave for another meeting, so I'm going to defer to you first.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Is it okay if we are able to meet this Friday to really kind of go over with the new participants in the neighborhood involved as far as what it is that we really want to see with the property and the understanding of what exactly is needed to us?
Are you asking if I'm available to attend this Friday? Or are you?
I just want to make sure that residents know that we can talk about all the details that are not quite clear now, because some people are here that are new. I understand that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a good idea. I can't come this Friday, but I could come next Friday. But I can make sure that you have copies of this information to share.
Okay, thank you so much. And you all have a wonderful day. Much love to everyone. Have a great weekend as well.
Thanks, Mr. Graham. Other questions? Comments?
Also, I just wanted to say real quick as well, Bishop G here, and she is the Vice President of the Neighborhood Association.
Great, thanks, Mr. Graham. Anything else that folks would like to share? And again, for those of you that dialed in by phone, I've got your phone numbers, and I'll make sure that we reach out and see if the best way of getting you information is by email or hard copies that we can get to you somehow. Either leave them here at the district offices or bring them to you in South Round Top. People, like, does folks feel like we're headed in the right direction? I mean, I know not everything is worked out. We're still at a pretty early stage.
Shannon, I'll just say thank you for the opportunity to be here and to continue to engage with the neighborhood. We're about this process. We want to make sure that we are talking to everybody and answering questions and so forth. So we look forward to the next meeting as well.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, I'll stick around for a little bit longer. If people have questions specifically for me as the district rep, I also am going to make sure I get everything downloaded as far as the chat questions. We will post updates to the website. I will also have, once this go up on the website, I'll also have a hard copy available at our central office, the security desk. And then, you know, I'll make sure that I have that available also for Mr. Graham. If there's anyone that is on Zoom that you currently don't get emails from me about Greenwood or other sites, please put you can either DM me in the chat or just post those in the chat so I can make sure that you get those email updates. Again, I'll follow up for folks in the neighborhood who don't feel like they're very informed to see what we can get out to people who aren't able to participate via Zoom. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now.